There was a meeting the week before he dropped out and announced his support for Kamala. There's a meeting that week before with all of the cabinet members and Kamala Harris. Biden was not there, where she says, I want to invoke the 25th Amendment to get him out of the way.
Where did you get that information from?
From somebody that was in the room.
All right, we got Dan Holloway from Drinking Bros. I'm excited.
Yeah, big time.
I could tell you're really pumped. You're just as pumped as I am. Your enthusiasm is off the charts.
I don't really do enthusiasm. I'm on the other side of that issue.
Yeah, what do you mean?
I don't think it's that great of an idea to get super wound up about things, you know?
I agree with you. I think that both of us agree completely. I may have like an excited, energetic disposition, but I think that while having an excited, energetic disposition, you could still keep your emotions in check. And I think it's the most important thing to do, especially in this political landscape.
Sure. I think the only time I ever really get, I guess, excited about something is as I'm eating a steak.
I love steak.
I'll just like rock back and forth, you know? He knows what I'm talking about, this dude. He knows. Just rock back and forth. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. That's about it for me, though.
I treated myself to a steak after the election. No, during the election. I just went to actually I've been eating steak a lot. I went to Moonshine. I don't remember. I just got a steak. It was like the prime rib or something like that.
Yeah, that works.
It was really
Protein.
good, fucking delicious. And then I took, after my latest video at the city council, I took my cameraman and I bought him steak because he's done such a great job filming all my videos and whatever it is, and bought him some steak. And my buddy Kyle Murphy, I'm gonna take him out and get him some steak too, because he used to run a Bitcoin company called PlebLab, and they sponsored me in like 2022, and paid me in Bitcoin. They gave me like close to $2,000 in Bitcoin. When the price was like $20,000.
Yeah.
And now it's like a lot more than that. And so I should do a nice thing and buy him some steak as a show of appreciation.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was going to hit 100 sometime in Q1 of 25, but it looks like maybe it does it before the end of the year. It's hard to say.
It could. I remember last time when I came on the show, you guys were making fun of me when I was telling y'all to buy it.
I just don't care. I'm not. I put my money in businesses that I actually own. I don't give a fuck about Bitcoin. But we do from time to time. We'll have like Anthony Pompliano come on and talk about his stuff. Yeah, he's a good dude. I like his brother Joe too. He does. We talk more about sports with Joe.
Okay.
To be honest, but yeah, Anthony's a smart dude. They're both smart guys.
Well, I actually I got lucky. I bought a good amount during COVID, and I didn't really know what I bought. And then I started listening to the Best Business Show with Pomp, and he had all these like really good guests on, like Will Clemente and Dylan LeClaire. And then I started actually learning about what I owned. And I'm like, oh shit, this is like the best asset. This is the best thing to have in the world. Like, there's almost nothing more important to own, in my opinion, than Bitcoin. And keeping it safe is the most important thing that you should be prioritizing. And so I actually owe people like that a lot of gratitude. The only thing is that he kind of did fuck people, not deliberately, but he did recommend a lot of really terrible companies in 2021 that just went bust, and people probably lost a lot of money as a result of that.
Investing in companies can be challenging, especially if you have no capability with regard to affecting the outcome of the company. I only invest in my own companies. Yeah. Like stuff that I own and manage. But Bitcoin is the new bond or treasury certificate, right? I mean, if you think about there is an intrinsic finite supply in Bitcoin, which is not true of U.S. currency. Regardless of whether we stop this bleeding and the Fed go back to a gold standard, none of that shit's going to stop the fact that we've inflated the fuck out of our currency. So Bitcoin can't be inflated because there's a finite supply. So if you've got extra cash lying around and you want to put it somewhere that's going to have a guaranteed yield over the next 5 to 20 years or something like that, it's I guess maybe ironic to say this after all the shit everybody's talked about it, but it's probably and how volatile it can be in the short term. It's probably the safest investment you can make.
I agree with that. I've used it as a savings vehicle for a long time, and it's really helped me out a lot.
Yeah, because the highest yield savings account you're going to get, and this is like an intro offer, is what, 4.5%, which is pretty good, right? That's in a good year over ahead of inflation. But the past, if you had invested in any account that wasn't, let's see, 24, anything under 8%, you've lost money in the last 4 years.
Yes, I agree.
Well, it's not that's a math problem.
No, but yeah, I'm saying I agree that the math is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stupid.
It 1,000% is. I've liked it. It's been a really good thing. And the other cool thing about something like Bitcoin too is that it's your money and it can't be frozen. And when you saw what happened to the Canadian truckers as a very prime example, they were freezing bank accounts of people who sent money to the Canadian truckers. And then when they were sending Bitcoin to people, if it's in a hardware wallet or you own your own keys or you run your own node, it's your money whether these people like it or not. And then they can't do 15-minute cities. They can't do carbon scores. They can't do a lot of the things that the Davos class
taxing
wants.
unrealized gains is the biggest one, I think. All that other stuff is certainly measures of control, but in the short term, this effort by leftists and neocons to try to tax unrealized gains, that's what it's all about. It's all about trying to weaken the positions of people that hold crypto and try to usher in a central bank digital currency. That's really what it's about.
I agree. I also think that a lot of these meme coins and a lot of the speculation is another way to do it because people will lose all their money in these rug pull scams and then conflate that with actual Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then when they go broke and have no money, they're going to need that universal livable wage and they're going to lose faith in wanting to seek financial sovereignty. And then, here's your central bank digital currency tied to your social credit score and you have no choice but to have it because it's convenient, it's easy. You're not going to have to worry about paying taxes because everything will get taken out. And they're going to use a lot of perks to sell that. They're going to also use a lot of progressive rhetoric to disguise it. And, maybe even with Trump, like it won't be a CBDC, but it'll be like a stable coin that you can have and the stablecoin will give you a whole bunch of yield.
USD coin already exists, and it's meant to stay. I mean, the purpose of it originally is just to stay current with the U.S. dollar, right? Which I understand that to some degree, but now there's Bitcoin debit cards, so what's the fucking point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, I don't think the government should even exist. The government should be like 12 accountants deciding what we all agree on and how it gets funded and how much it costs and stuff like that. But that's about it. Like this 2 million federal employees is retarded to me, which is nice. I'm glad that Doge is getting involved now. It's in the conversations around crypto too show you how fucking stupid the average person is. And it's not that they're stupid really. It's just that they're willfully ignorant. Because I think about NFTs. NFTs are not pictures of fucking monkeys. That was nothing. That was Beanie Babies. And people lost millions of dollars. I think Jake or Logan Paul, one of them bought something for like $4 million and it's worth like 25 grand now. That was stupid. What it really is an authentication encryption algorithm that is light years ahead of anything else, and it's going to work. Like it's one that you can append, like if for any of you tech people out there, like an old school MD5 checksum, you can manicure that now and fake that and spoof locations like geotags, all this stuff. You can do modern computing. You can do pretty much anything you want with that stuff, but not with an NFT. It's different, right? So the idea of having, especially with the rise of AI and manufactured content that will in 5 to 10 years be indistinguishable from reality, being able to say, well, I'm the actual human being, I made it, and here's how you know. If it doesn't have my NFT on it, you know it's not mine, right? That's the only way in the future we're going to be able to authenticate this stuff, and that is extremely valuable, not just monetarily, but to the epistemology, the collected shared facts that we have that build the fucking culture. You know what I mean? So people are really stupid in that they don't take the time to learn the underlying infrastructure of the belief systems that they have. That's a big problem. Like people that don't understand tech or history often find themselves in charge of how it's going to go moving forward, and that's always a bad idea, right?
No, I agree with you. I've been very much like Bitcoin only, just because it's the asset that I know. It's what I understand. It's
Ethereum's
money.
pretty good too because there's really good tech. The tech is too early. It's not ready yet. Well, it's not that the tech's not ready. We're not ready for what Ethereum is yet. We will be at some point, but
Okay, but what is Ethereum? Because what I noticed with Ethereum, and what I don't like about Ethereum is they're always changing their code. They're doing this proof of stake bullshit, which is only allows the large token holders to wind up getting richer at the expense of like the smaller holders. It feels like it's going to be used as a basis for central bank digital currencies. It's going to be built kind of on a similar blockchain. They have to follow all the FASB rules when it comes to transactions. So the idea of financial privacy kind of goes totally out the window. And there have been a lot of hacks on that blockchain that are still kind of going on today. And Vitalik is just dumping a whole bunch of his supply right now in the open market, or was a little while ago. So my view on Ethereum is that like maybe it's used to create games or maybe it's used to create newer technologies. But if that technology is not even close to materializing, Bitcoin seems like the better thing to have for financial sovereignty and just the better asset to own right now. I think.
Well, I mean, these are two very different things. Ethereum is a technology, and Bitcoin is an investment. It's a currency.
Yeah, it's money. Yeah.
Ethereum is not in any way and never will be a currency. I mean, you could consider it that insofar as you're holding stock in a technology that's going to exist at some point, but that's a long play. It's not like you're not going to see what you would expect from like a high yield savings account, 3.5 to 4.5% per year over the course of 20 years. That's good, right? Like you like that. You're not going to see something like that from Ethereum. It might plateau for 4 or 5 years at a time, and then all of a sudden the technology becomes usable, and then but that's a stock. That's not currency.
That also
right?
happens to Bitcoin too, to be fair. Like during bear markets,
it does. But if you look at the 25-year track of Bitcoin versus Ethereum, you'll see some plateaus, right? You'll see a couple here or there, but the trajectory will always be upward.
Yeah, in Bitcoin terms, Ethereum, well, pretty much every altcoin has been going down perpetually in Bitcoin terms, and it's probably not going to change for a long time.
I mean, we talk about relative to value of things relative to inflation all the time. There'll come a point in the next 10 years or so where we're talking about all the other coins plus maybe even some stuff with the stock market relative to Bitcoin value, right? Which is pretty interesting.
I actually think that Bitcoin is going to be the best barometer for actually buying and choosing stocks, because every stock is going to appreciate in fiat pretty much because of how devalued and debased our currency is. And the real measure of a stock, you're going to actually, instead of using TA, you're going to have to go back to fundamental analysis, because a company with really good fundamentals that's making like products that are going to genuinely revolutionize humanity, they're going to appreciate in Bitcoin terms. And so people are going to have to become a lot smarter and a lot more thorough when it comes to picking companies, and as a result, you're going to get better technology, and using money like Bitcoin is actually going to lead to an unprecedented advancement in human flourishing. I really believe that.
It should, yeah, but I mean the pitfalls are the same as any other market. Like if you track Berkshire Hathaway's investments over the past 15 or 20 years, he pretty much only invests in monopolies, right?
Yeah.
That's his Warren Buffett's game plan, is to invest in profit off of monopolies. So he follows regulatory patterns. For example, between Clinton and Obama from 92 to 2014, we went from 100 military industrial complex companies servicing about 85% of the DoD all the way down to 5 major companies, right? And he's invested in all 5 of those. He invested in all the airlines right before deregulation happened, and I like deregulation, but not when the government chooses sides afterwards, right? So deregulation happens, and then a mixture of Bush and Obama allow the airlines to reduce from 20 major airlines down to 4, right? Cell phone companies went from 6 to 4. Bush allowed Maytag to buy Whirlpool, which gave them a 75% market share on home appliances, and Berkshire Hathaway invested in all those. So, there's something to be said about people that do ethical business. Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett, he's a piece of shit. He's a vulture capitalist in every sense of the word. And it's funny to me, but a couple years ago he's talking about how I'm going to give away half of my wealth. They're like, oh, you're only going to have like $4 billion? That must suck, dude. You fucking cunt. Anyways, people like that are absolute vultures. You have to, and look, certainly you can follow his trades and follow Nancy Pelosi's trades, and you'll make a lot of money.
Yes and no. Because the reason I say that is because they don't disclose their trades when they happen. They disclose their trades like 3 months after the fact.
Though that's not legal. So you have to file any kind of major trades 6 weeks, at a minimum 6 weeks before. It's just a matter of having access to that information. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we don't get access to the information until.
Well, you can get it. A normal person can get access to that.
Because I look at the Pelosi stock trader app and all that other stuff, and it's just when they announce that they bought the stock, and usually it's like a few weeks or a couple months after that the stock's been bought.
Yeah, that's just all public information, right? But the information is filed with the SEC at a minimum of 6 weeks ahead of time. If not, if you're over a majority, I can't remember the exact rules, so don't quote me on this. But I would encourage you to go look up the actual rules.
Yeah, show me how to do this after the show, because I want to actually learn and pay attention. To this.
It's. So if you own, I think it's 6.5% or more of a company or something like that, So like Vivek Ramaswamy just bought 14% of BuzzFeed, which is
wow.
one of the big reasons he did not take an actual government position. Like the Doge thing, they're not getting paid for that, I don't think.
No, it's all
that's all volunteer. Yeah. So it's like if he obviously if he took that Senate seat in Ohio, for example, he would have to get rid of some of the stuff. Same thing with Elon getting involved in actual politics, but if you're over, I think it's if you're in the top some percent of shareholders in that company, then you have to file 6 months ahead of time. And the reason is if you sell a bunch of stock and you're a top shareholder, then you are technically speaking, not on purpose or whatever, but you're manipulating the stock price, right?
Yes.
If you're on the board of the company, if you're an executive of the company, there's all these rules about that stuff.
So you got to file 6 weeks before you buy and 6 weeks before you sell?
6 months.
Before you buy.
If you're an executive of the company or a board member, and I think if you own a certain amount of the stock, you have to file way ahead of time. But either way, you have to file. If you're a majority shareholder, I think one of the majority shareholders, it's 6 weeks.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought that. Okay, well that's interesting. I want to look more into this after this episode. We should talk more about it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the smart trader like Pelosi does. Berkshire Hathaway doesn't give a fuck, right? Because they that's what they do.
Yeah.
But Nancy Pelosi wants people to think that it's all on the up and up, so they stay right under the thresholds. And you can follow all this stuff on Unusual Whale's website too. They do really good research on this stuff.
Okay.
That's probably my favorite. Like the one you mentioned, I peek in on every now and again. But Unusual Whales on Twitter is one of my favorite ways to track these people. And I only invest in my own companies. I'm not in the market. I'm not in Bitcoin or any of this stuff. I just pay attention because it's interesting to me to see how the aristocracy in this country, I guess, financially rapes everybody else.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
how do you feel about the election?
I feel fine. Yeah. I mean, this is definitely the better outcome. I don't think to be honest, I'm not sure that this is like an episode of fucking Dallas or something, right? Biden shouldn't have been in there in the first place. Everybody knew it. Like I know that everybody's pretending like we just discovered this dude has dementia 6 weeks ago or whatever, but
no, we knew during the primaries.
There's episodes of my show in 2019, one of them with Adam Kinzinger, actually.
Oh, wow.
He was on the show talking about how Biden has dementia. Now,
you had Adam Kinzinger on. That must have been, what a weird story arc for that guy.
Yeah, he was he was an Air Force pilot of some sort. I mean, he does not like he tries to portray himself. He flew fuelers, right? So he wasn't like a fighter pilot or anything, but still a pilot. We had him on the show to talk about stuff. He was a Republican back then. Yeah. Which is interesting, but he's a statist, right? The Republican and Democrat thing doesn't mean anything.
No, it's all like two sides of the same coin. Yeah.
But yeah, this is like, so she goes, Kamala Harris kind of wedged her way in there against the party's wishes. They wanted an open primary, but that's because they couldn't, they probably would not have been able to pull it off anyways because Biden waited so long to get out, but he didn't actually wait that long to get out. He was going to stay in. He was forced out. There was a meeting the week before he dropped out and announced his support for Kamala. There's a meeting that week before with all of the cabinet members and Kamala Harris. Biden was not there, where she says, I want to invoke the 25th Amendment to get him out of the way.
Where did you get that information from?
From somebody that was in the room, one of the staffers or one of the cabinet members.
So it was a kind of okay.
Yes.
All right.
I think somebody wrote a report about it later, as the New York Post or somebody wrote a report about it later. But yeah, there was a meeting. She says, let's do the 25th Amendment. I could look it up and see who was on what side of it. I think Buttigieg was a maybe. He said he would vote yes if everybody else did, because he's a pussy, obviously, right? And then Janet Yellen said the same. She would vote yes if everybody else did. Blinken was a no. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look at my notes. But they took that threat to the Biden family with Jill in the room. It was like, hey, if you don't get out of the way, we're going to start pushing the 25th Amendment. So that's when he resigned. I don't know about the endorsement of her. So he resigns with a PDF or a JPEG.
Yeah, it's like breaking
Twitter.
up with your girlfriend over text or something like that. It's
and
like
then
he broke up with America via text after everything that happened.
After 50 years of service, and then 4 hours later, this motherfucker. And it's not him. It's that 24-year-old blonde white woman that controls his Twitter. Is like, oh, by the way, I support Kamala. It's like, oh, do you? But I mean, you support ice cream and walks on the beach, and you're not very good at the latter. So maybe stick to the ice cream.
I agree.
Yeah. But anyways, the election went well. Now we'll see. Look, Ron Paul said it really well the other day on Twitter. It's like, you're not going to cut the budget by $2 trillion without pissing some people off. And
a lot of people are getting pissed off right now.
Oh, they're angry. Yeah, they're butthurt. Yeah, it's pretty funny to me. Like my sincere desire is that we cut the federal government to the bone. 75% of employees are gone. There's just no real, like, I want a government that's so small and ineffectual that they don't have time to plan and conduct a 5-hour raid on a guy who has a fucking squirrel in his house. That's what I want.
I agree with that. No, I think you and like everybody in America should agree with that when you put it that way. Have you seen some of the studies that they've like Ashley Sinclair has been like releasing a bunch of stuff, and the New York Post.
Oh, about some of the silly stuff. Yeah,
like the $50 million in transgender monkeys. And like
well, it's on that monkey island that's off the coast of South Carolina, where 40 monkeys just got loose last week. Did you see that shit?
Yes.
Jesus Christ. This is how it fucking starts, dude.
This is
and where's Charlton Heston? He just dies in 2008? Fuck you, dude. We need you here to fight these monkeys.
I agree with you.
I don't know what we're going to do now.
Yeah, but some of these studies are absolutely insane, and then everybody gets butthurt like, oh my God, he's going to destroy so many jobs and take away so many like needed federal positions, and then you see what the federal government is spending money on. There's another guy, Oilfield Rando.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my favorite accounts. I don't even know if it's a real human being or not, but that guy is a trip, dude. He just like literally releases report after report after report detailing the absurd, wasteful spending. Like they did like a $50 million study on like the effects of driving high. Like
I could tell you the effects.
I'm like, I could tell you, like I could do the study for free.
You drive 30 miles per hour in the right lane.
Yeah.
And you stop like 20 feet before the light.
Yes.
That's driving high. All right. So we're done here.
And they paid $50 million to commission a study on.
So they spent $49,999,000 on weed, and then $1,000 on a camera, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is the study you did exactly? You asshole. I guess you got to save money for munchies afterwards at Waffle House or wherever the fuck you go.
I mean, that makes sense. What other studies? Because there's a whole bunch of these that you could just go on and on and on about.
Man, there was you know what? I've actually
I like.
I've got a list because we're covering
this
some of this in our fake news show today.
Yes.
Like no shit, I've got a whole list. And I think Vivek actually posted some of them last night. Hold on, here we go. Okay, so in 2023, the federal government shipped $1.3 billion in checks to dead people from the IRS. Medicare, sort of veterans groups, all that stuff to dead people. $1.3 billion, and it went to no one in particular. We don't know where it is or who's cashing it.
Well, it's a reward for voting for Biden in 2020.
Yeah, well, it would definitely be dead people then. Prisoners thought to be free and out of work received $171 million in unemployment payments or Social Security just in 2023. Medicare and Medicaid sent out $101 billion in improper payments, mostly fraud, and tax cheats took the IRS for at least $546 million. I don't care about that. Cheat on your taxes. Fuck these people.
Well, especially if it's going to that.
Yeah. 2021, the NIH awarded.
And just for the record, I don't support or condone not paying your fair share as to what you're owed to. By
I do. Everybody's fair share is zero. Fuck you. Not you, but everybody in the audience. Fuck all your audience. In 2021, the NIH spent $550,000 on sent it to a Russian lab performing experiments on cats, including removing parts of the brain to see if they could still walk.
This is what?
That is some straight up Pavlov's dog vivisection, drilling a hole into a dog's jaw to see if it drools or not. Let's see. American taxpayers spent $4 million last year for Joe and Hunter Biden to go on a trip to Ireland.
Oh. That
included $1.2 million on an elaborate sound system and light show for a Biden speech. Now, remember, Kamala, I'm sure you've seen the breakdown of her.
Oh, her finances, I was going to bring that up. But yeah,
God,
she was given $1 billion and she's $20 million in the hole.
And she spent, she gave Beyonce $10 million to not sing, which, to be honest, if I had $10 million to give Beyonce to not sing, I might give it to her to shut the fuck up, but not on my campaign. Let's see. NIH, $33 million to a firm which runs Monkey Island. We already talked about that one. So COVID-19 pandemic, FEMA is expected to spend another $70 billion on COVID stuff in 2026, between now and 2026.
Why?
And Fauci just got an exit payment of $15 million. What he should get is
prison?
a big rock tied around his neck and launched into the ocean.
Well, Dan, to be fair though, his life is pretty much a golden jail until he dies.
Yeah, he can't go in public.
Yeah, he basically confined himself to living in a golden jail after everything that happened.
Federal agencies are on average using 12% of the space in their buildings, which is costing the GSA about $2 billion annually to maintain government offices and $5 additional billion just to lease space, and they're only using 12% of that space. We're also spending a couple of billion a year maintaining buildings that government agencies are no longer in, instead of just selling the buildings.
This is absurd.
It's not great, but I mean, what do you expect? Who do you know that works? And go to the DMV and tell me how much. Like, I've got $1 million right now, and I have to give it to somebody to make my community. But it's not mine. It's just $1 million, and I have to give it to somebody to make my community better. Is the first place you're looking really government? You're gonna go to the DMV and give them money? Like the county tax office? What the fuck are you talking about? No, I'm going to give it to the actual. You can hear them right now. People say, "What? How we get rid of the government? Who's going to build the roads?" That motherfucker over there that you can hear building the road right now.
We'll build the roads. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Private contractors build everything. What the fuck are you talking about?
It's absurd.
It drives me nuts.
And as a pedicab driver, like half the people like that I work with are like raging fucking leftists.
Oh yeah, well especially down here, sure.
Yeah, which is hilarious because I was telling them like, no, dude, you don't understand. Like, it's bad right now. It's bad right now, pedicabbing, because of who's in office. Okay, that's straight up what it is, because nobody has any fucking money, because all of our money is going to these useless government programs. You're getting taxed out the ass. Corporations have to pay more taxes. Inflation's causing people to have to get laid off. It's causing the cost of food and groceries and everything else to skyrocket. So people aren't spending money on luxury items like electric tricycles to ride around while you're drunk.
I just had a conversation with somebody. Like I can do whatever I want because I make good money. But people that are like genuinely middle class. One of my buddies yesterday actually told me, like, hey, this is just random conversation. We weren't even talking about politics or the economy. He was like, yeah, we're going to bring on our house cleaner for 1 extra week a month or 2 extra weeks a month. So we had it every other week. Now it's going to be every week. And I explained to him, because he's not really super political or anything, I explained to him, you know what that means, right? Like, you're paying some local double the amount you were before because you have the money to do it. And that's how the goddamn economy works. The more money that middle class, the vast majority of people who are middle class, the more money they have, the more money they spend on everything and everybody else.
Which boosts the economy and allows people who are super creative and super innovative to make things that actually improve humanity.
Yeah, it's not like fucking rocket surgery here, man. There's a reason that none of these oppressive styles, including our current system of capitalism in America.
It's not really capitalism.
It's not at all. There's a great book about this called The Myth of Capitalism. I recommend all of you read it. But true capitalism works really well because markets correct themselves, especially these days in the digital age. Markets correct themselves very rapidly.
Very rapidly.
Yeah, so it's like I think about the housing market right now and how we keep doing this over the past 40 years or so. We've continuously converted things that we need to stay alive. Like, think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Food, shelter, and warmth, right? Which you can convert warmth into energy, right? Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And then transportation as well, but that would be higher up the list. But let's just say energy. We've commoditized these things. We've taken them from basic needs, and you could probably include healthcare in that as well. We've taken these things from basic human needs, food, shelter, healthcare, and energy, to commodities, right? And we started trading houses, doing these subprime mortgage fucking bundles, and speculatively trading on the future of our ability to fucking survive. That is insane. That's probably the dumbest thing that's happened as far as economics goes in the past 50 years. And people just keep doubling down on it. Like, that whole shit, that Big Short bullshit is still going on right now. The exact same thing. Now, there's less subprime mortgages out there because everybody defaulted on them. There was a housing crash and blah, 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 and now they're not issuing them as much anymore. But they're still bundling those old subprimes into, like, those B plus and C plus into packages that you can either buy or short. Like, why are we treating something that everybody needs like a commodity? You can't do that. Coffee is a commodity. I can get through the day without coffee. It sucks, but I can do it. I can physically survive that. I can't physically survive without heat. People don't die from heat. They die from cold. I can't survive without food. I can't survive without, appropriate especially preventative health care, and I can't survive without shelter. We've learned that as a species now. For some reason, we've turned all these things into commodities, right? So this is the argument that I like to, not argument, but the conversation I like to have when I'm in a mixed political crowd, because I talk to Cenk Uygur a lot about stuff like this.
I like Cenk a lot.
Yeah, I do too, and Anna as well. Anna's on my show Monday, actually.
Nice, dude. You know what? That guy is like almost the unsung hero of this election cycle.
Yeah, I mean he's been pretty rational.
He's awesome.
He still is convinced that Trump is a fascist for some reason.
Well, he's wrong.
He's wrong about that, but he's at least willing to engage and talk about it. Some of these people, including on the right, are just shrieking into the fucking void.
Oh, it gets on my fucking nerves. I wanted to talk about that too, especially all this Groyper fucking Nick Fuentes. Yeah. Dude, I can't stand it.
He's not a real person. He's just trolling people. I don't know why anybody takes anything.
He's a master of getting attention, though.
Yeah, that's what a troll does, man. He's like, what? Don't feed the trolls. Remember those signs that used to exist? Don't feed the trolls. Don't feed the trolls. Just ignore that fucking dumb turd, and he'll go away.
Yeah, but people don't want to ignore that dumb turd because he gets everybody else engagement.
Oh, yeah, and that's what it's all about. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. I think I even tweeted something about it. There's a whole group of influencers on both sides of the political aisle, but especially on the right, who have made their careers over the past, let's call it 6 years, maybe even since the beginning of Trump. And their audience, everything, all their media is based on being a contrarian, right? Being the out group.
Yeah.
And now that they're the in group, their only option at this point is they can't become positive and start supporting the good things that are happening. They have to continuously find the bad things. And look, there's something to be said for the watchmen, keeping a close eye on government. I don't trust any politician. I don't give a fuck what their political party is. Even friends of mine, once they become politicians, I'm like, all right. Like, here's what I do.
I look at it like you're my best friend when you're not a politician, but when you're a politician, I'm going to talk so much shit. Like, I'm not going to like be nice to you because you're a politician.
No, there's got to be a
friend.
wall there. Yeah. It's like I trust people to look after their own best interests, and that's the way that we should. That's the way that we should quantify what is good and bad in a politician. Not if it's a dude I'd like to have a beer with, or I like this policy they talk about or that policy. Certainly the latter should come into play a little bit, but really you have to look at what motivates this person, what are their core values, and if I put them in this situation, how are they going to behave? And here's a good example of that. So Tulsi Gabbard is nominated to be the director of national intelligence. Awesome. I like Tulsi. We're friends. She said some problematic things over the years about guns. She has since corrected course. I had her on the show, gave her the opportunity to talk about it. She seems genuine to me, but you never really know, right? Until you get.
And she was also running as a Democrat, so you have to say stuff like that when you're a Democrat.
Like fair, but I wouldn't, right? Which is why I'm not in politics.
That's why I'm not in politics.
But anyways, she is unique in this regard, as far as politicians go. In a lot of ways, she was targeted directly by the deep state. So she went from a quiet congresswoman in Hawaii. Nobody gives a fuck about that, right? I mean, honestly, she's pretty and shit, and she was in the army, so it's a good story.
And a person of color, so that's the ideal Democratic identity politics.
Yeah. So it's like a good story and everything, but as far as a needle move, she's not really a needle mover. And then she annihilates Kamala Harris at the fucking 2020 Democratic debates.
There's a prequel to this. And in 2016, she chose to endorse Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. She definitely pissed some people off there. And then, fast forward to 18, you can start seeing her leave the Democratic Party a little bit. In principle, like she starts rabble-rousing a little bit. And you can see it's really interesting to go back and look at people's conversion. It's like Saul on the road to Damascus becoming Paul, you know what I mean? 2020 comes around, she annihilates Harris. Harris never gets one electoral vote, even this year, by the way, but never gets one electoral vote because Tulsi Gabbard nuked her completely out of there. Shortly after, a couple of weeks after, Hillary Clinton calls her a Russian agent, which people are still talking about right now. By the way,
especially now that she got the nomination.
She has a top secret security clearance, and now she's going to have a top secret SCI code word clearance, which is not something that people just give out. At any rate, that happens, and then the Quiet Skies program from the Federal Air Marshals, which I broke this story in 2019. One of our listeners, actually, his dad worked on the program, and he whistle blew the whole thing. It was warrantless surveillance of American citizens. She had 5 air marshals on every flight she was on, following her around the country all the time. So she went from that to now she is the director of national intelligence. So I think about the experiences that she's had, right? And I know her. I know that she's not a vindictive person. It's not about that for her. I know that regardless of what her genuine feelings on the Second Amendment at this point are, and look, I can only take her at face value, but it's trust but verify, like Reagan said, right? So she's in the DNI spot now. How is the 2A really going to come up there? Probably not.
No, I don't think so.
It's not an issue for the director of national intelligence. She manages external affairs for the intelligence community. So that's a non-issue. So I come back over to her experience. She's been fucked by the deep state as much as anybody except for maybe Trump, right? And now she's in a position to do something. So, yeah, I trust her to do the right thing in that position, which is to dismantle these motherfuckers, right? So that's the way you have to it's not enough to say, oh, well, she believes this one thing from back in the day, so I'm against her forever. It's like, okay, because you're never going to agree 100% with everybody on anything. And you should definitely have non-negotiables, but can I put this person, even with their flaws, in this position and find success? I think about it from like a sports standpoint. My quarterback is really good at this, really bad at this, so I'm going to set him up to do this, right?
Yeah.
And expect success, because that's what a rational person would do. You can't just throw everybody away anytime you get butthurt about something they do or say.
Well, because then you would have nobody.
Correct.
And then you would wind up actually getting the worst people possible.
You would find sycophants.
Yeah, you
right?
find
That's it.
sycophants, yeah.
And what the fuck, man? Nobody wants that.
No, it's fucking
even
gross.
like Trump. So you could tell based on the appointments he's made so far that there are two primary goals that Trump has in his cabinet. One is loyalty to him.
But
which
these
is
are not sycophants. Like Chelsea's not a Trump sycophant.
No.
Not at all. Yeah. So
no.
like,
it's loyalty to him to get what he wants done. It could. But by the way, that's what America voted for. So that's exactly what
it's loyalty to the people, actually, to America.
And the second one is decentralization of government. That's the second one. It's very obvious that that's what he wants to do, because he's picked people that have been fucked over by the government to come into government. There's only one reason you do that.
So Dan, I have a question. Do you think Tulsi will actually get confirmed?
Yeah, I think they're all going to get confirmed.
Even Gates?
Yeah. They'll do a recess appointment. I mean, Thune has said he will do a recess appointment.
What is
so Congress goes into recess and the appointment just goes through automatically.
Oh, yeah. Well, really? Okay. So maybe Thune isn't so bad for the majority. I was going to talk about the majority leader and stuff like that.
I mean, I think John Thune belongs in prison.
Why do you think so?
Senate Bill 720, the Israel Anti-Boycott Act. He was a co-sponsor of this bill. And what that bill did was criminalize not working with Israel for individual U.S. citizens. So let's say you make widgets and Israel wants to buy them from you, and they requested it through the DOD or through state or
you
something
have to
like
sell
that.
them, right?
If you not only do you have to sell to them, but if you don't, you're subject to a fine from $250 to $1 million and 20 years in prison.
But wait, I have a question. What if somebody wants to buy it at a higher price than what Israel wants to buy it for? It doesn't matter. You have to just sell to Israel no matter
That's
what.
right. And if you say, even as a private citizen in the United States, that I refuse to sell to Israel, whether it's for financial reasons or ethical reasons or whatever reasons you have, which you are well within your rights to do, by the way.
Yeah, this is a terrible bill. And I'm Jewish and I'm very pro-Israel, but all that does is create Jew hatred. Like all that type of shit just create that type of shit just perpetuates and emboldens and inflames anti-Semitism, which is already a problem.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really bad. You should not.
It's really
that.
stupid.
That is a terrible bill to do.
Besides just being strategically stupid, and unethical, it's criminal. Like it's a direct violation of the First and 14th
It's like
Amendment.
saying that if I'm a business owner, I have to hire a transgender person no matter how qualified they are. It's like on the same level.
But not just that you have to, but if you don't,
you're going to go to jail for
not. You're going to jail for 20 years. You're going to go to prison.
Yeah, that shit has to be abolished.
Yeah, so I think Thune belongs underneath a jail somewhere, to be honest. But you work with the team you got. I don't like everybody that I work with, Gary, for example. Everybody's been in a workplace. Everybody's been in a workplace before, especially if you're a manager. You always have. You've either had a manager you hate or you've managed someone that you hate, right? Everybody. Yeah, Gary's a turd. Fuck you. I'm sure he watches your show too, so I'm sure he'll watch this. Yeah. No, but everybody out there has had either had a manager or been a manager to somebody you don't like.
Oh,
right?
absolutely, yeah.
And what do? You pout about it? No, you're a fucking man. Grab yourself by the nuts and you find some redeeming quality in them and put it into action. That's your job.
Okay, but why? Okay, So with this whole majority thing, I feel like everybody was going nuts. And really like rabble rousing over picking Rick Scott over John Thune or John Cornyn. And maybe I don't know anything because I'm just a guy who rides a tricycle for a living.
You're talking about red flag Rick, right?
Yes. Like, what's the fucking difference between red flag Rick, John Cornyn, and John Thune? They seem like they're literally the same.
I don't know, man. The only major folks during this whole thing that were talking about that were me and Dana Lash. Everybody else was like all over this dude's nuts.
I know, it was kind of crazy. People that I really like and respect a lot.
Yeah.
We're talking about how important it is to confirm Rick Scott. I'm like, why? I don't understand why.
I get it. Well, it's
the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it from that spot. To me, the red flag thing is a non-negotiable.
Oh, hold on, Mike. I mean, sorry, I'm Dan. I was thinking about Mike. Everybody thought that Mike Johnson was going to be a really good MAGA pick too for speaker, and then look how that turned out. So that's kind of why I'm like, oh, these people are like going nuts and fawning over this one person to be a majority leader, and like, you know, look, I trust the MAGA crowd for most things, but when it comes to appointing people for leadership positions, especially in Congress or the Senate, I take that shit with a little bit I feel like that's just more noise shouting into the wind for engagement than it is for like actually helping the country, because I saw no discernible difference between any of these three senators.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you look at one of the conservative groups, CPAC or Heritage or somebody, in their voting record grades, Rick Scott is way up there. He's like 94% conservative versus, I think Cornyn and Thune would have come in somewhere in the 30s.
Oh yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand it to some degree, but you know, mostly right now it's about getting cabinet positions confirmed. There's going to be some legislative stuff, right? So this is all going to happen in stages over the next 4 years. First, the bleeding has to stop. So executive orders at the border are going to happen, just like they did in 2017, right?
Yes.
Shut that shit down. Tom Homan, who is an acquaintance of mine, he is the fucking Terminator. He's the best. He's my favorite human being that I've ever ran into working in government.
Really?
Like, for real, yes.
How so?
He genuinely, not in the way that somebody who tells you they don't give a fuck doesn't give a fuck.
He doesn't give a fuck.
He literally doesn't care.
He sounds like he doesn't.
You've seen him on the floor.
60 Minutes, yeah.
Well, at 60 Minutes, he's like, how can you deport families without
deport
separating them? Like, yeah, we'll deport the whole goddamn
together,
family, dude. It's like, he just he's been working in law enforcement, federal law enforcement at the border specifically for 34 years, right? There's actually pictures of him riding an old Chevy sedan, like Chips or some shit, like a 1970s cop, big biceps with his fucking tan shirt rolled up. The only thing that's missing is smoking a fucking heater. But he's been around for a long time. He's one of the smartest people on border security. My master's degree is in international border security.
Oh, wow, okay.
He's one of the smartest people on border security that I've ever seen, but not so much. One of the problems is this is one of the backdrops of this election, as you know, there's a certain level of education that you reach where you live inside of the hypothetical and you don't ever face actual reality. That's why intellectuals, like, you go to business school and you're going to get business lessons from people that have never run a fucking business in their life, right?
Yeah.
Or I can subscribe to Jeffrey Woo's Twitter, right, who runs fucking Anti-Fund with Jake Paul and has made fucking hundreds of millions of dollars running actual businesses. I can just listen to him. I can listen to Pomp. Or his brother, Clemente.
Will Clemente's the man, dude.
Or Sailor on Bitcoin. Like, there's so many people out there. So many these days, you don't have to go to a textbook to find this stuff or a professor to find this stuff, and that's why the university system is going to collapse soon.
I actually agree with you. I think that, like, you know, YouTube University and Twitter University is going to replace the college system.
Shit, that's how fucking what's his nuts? Oh my God, why can't I remember his name? 12 Rules for Life. What's his name?
Robert, not Kiyosaki.
No, the Canadian dick.
Gary V.
No.
Grant Cardone?
No.
Jordan Peterson?
Peterson, yeah. God, I don't
Clean
know.
your
I couldn't
room, that
think of his name, he actually got famous because he was just recording all of his lectures at University of Toronto and putting them on YouTube. Nobody knew who the fuck he was until then. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, that C-16 bill that criminalizes misgendering people came up, and he was like, I'm not doing that. Fuck you. And then it all blew up. But all that stuff was already available. I recommend, if you anything you think of that you want to learn about, I promise you can get it either free on YouTube or Audible. Actually, a lot of lectures are on Audible for free, or it's very, very cheap. I'm talking about World University by Columbia. Do you know about this?
No.
So Columbia University started this thing with Brian Greene, the physicist, way back in the day, like in the middle like early 2010s, and you could just take physics courses. You could take economics courses.
So you can literally listen to full-blown lectures at Ivy League schools online.
Yep.
Without even having to pay for the school. Like, but that's the thing too. Like the fact that businesses require these advanced degrees to even work at these businesses. Is such a fucking scam because. These people don't know fucking anything. These people,
if they knew anything, they'd be running a business and not making. I mean, look, professor, it makes decent money, tenured, but not like I make. You know what I mean? Like I start my own businesses and I make really good money now because I put my own life and capital at risk to do it.
Yeah.
Not that they're hiding or anything, but like you want to take some advice from people who have actually had something on the line and not people who are just theorizing.
I think, and this is gonna sound kind of crazy, but I think take this with a grain of salt, right? But I think that billionaires are some of the most vilified, unjust.
Oh, it's retarded.
Unjustifiably vilified people on planet Earth. Because in order to be a billionaire, it's not just like, I was born. Like I was talking to somebody about Elon Musk, and she's like, well, Elon Musk just became super rich because he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And I'm like, no, the fuck he wasn't.
He immigrated to a different country with no money.
Yeah.
The fuck you talking?
What are you talking? Okay, so there's that, right? But also, even if he had like $2 million, right, and given $2 million in capital. Do you know how talented and how hardworking and how relentless and how intelligent you have to be to turn $2 million into $44 billion? Those returns are fucking insane.
Well, 300 billion now.
Oh, right.
44 is just what he spent on Twitter.
Right. You're
He's
right.
worth 300
okay,
now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
But I mean, is there really that big of a difference between 44 and 300 at that point? Yeah. It's
absurd. And
there's a man named Bill Knudsen. Everybody needs to know about this guy. He was one of the executives at Ford and General Motors back in the day, like in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, right? He's like, after Ford left, he was the guy that kind of revolutionized the automobile factory floor.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways that made it capable of mass production. And when we were about to get involved in World War II, 38, 39, that time frame, FDR called him personally. He was like, hey, we want you to come run the we need to make planes fast. We need to make bombers. We need to make fucking fighters. We need to make transport planes fast. We don't know anybody in government that can do any of this stuff, so we want to hire you. He actually commissioned him as a lieutenant general and put him in charge of this program. And we would not have won World War II had it not been for this private citizen, Bill Knudsen, who was rich as shit. He came on board for no money, right? He took a pay cut. Actually, when he moved...
So we're adopting this ethos with Trump about how serving government is going to have the same altruistic meaning.
Yeah, and by the way, if you develop a strategy or technology or product or something like that literally helps us win a war, you should probably get rich from it.
Yeah.
That's the whole... I mean, you're not like... The military-industrial complex as it is today, just continuously pumping out overpriced bullshit. What war are we in? What real war have we been in? We shouldn't have been in Iraq or Afghanistan. Nobody's coming to threaten us. It's bullshit. We created this engine to make stuff that we don't need now. But when we actually need it, if there's something that you actually need, for example, if you need a free speech platform, if you need to transition from fossil fuels to some degree over a long period of time to a better technology, and look, say what you want to, like I'm a big fan of fossil fuels. Alex Epstein, Fossil Future.
Oh, he dismantles all the climate bullshit. Yeah.
One of the best books. Yeah. Fossil Future is the name of the book. You should read that book because everything you've heard about the climate is bullshit. But
it's all designed to usher you into 15-minute cities where everybody has complete and total control over everything you do, and then they're like, oh well, look, you're going over your carbon allowance, so you can only spend your money, your CBDC within a 15-minute journey. I think a lot of this stuff is going to die off as a result of Trump being elected. It's kind of the goal, and I think enough people are awake to it, and you have Bitcoin, and everybody knows about that, and so I think that it's going to be very hard to implement this stuff on a mass scale, and so the modern nation states and centralization of power is kind of going to go by the wayside, and they talk about that a lot in this book called The Sovereign Individual.
Yeah.
Have you read that book?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through right now.
It's good,
but it's like a guide for the future, dude. Like I was reading it, and I kind of knew how the election was going to go just from reading the book, and I kind of knew what was going to
People, there's like, I mean, you can read The Fourth Turning. It says we're on like an 80-year cycle. Maybe it's lower, short. Maybe it's longer or shorter than that. But people do have this innate desire to not be fucked with, right? And there's a gravity when too much control comes into one small area. It's almost like a singularity. People fucking start rebelling against that stuff. It never works. But to go back to the point, I like fossil fuels. we're not ruining the environment by using them. That's retarded. There's no evidence to suggest that. But an electric car is better, not because of energy, but because of physics. So a combustion engine burns fuel, creates little explosions that pumps pistons, right, like the Trump dance. It pumps pistons, which turns a flywheel, which turns a drivetrain, which then turns CVs, right? There's a there's a loss of energy, right, at every single one of those junctures. So you lose yield, some percentage of the yield of the energy, turning possible into kinetic energy. You lose some at each one of those junctures. With an electric car, you actually gain energy as you go down the line, right? It's immediate, so you don't need fuel injection or any of that stuff, and you actually gain energy because each wheel on the car is another engine, right? That's why the lowest model Tesla that comes out in 2025 will beat any car that exists in a drag race. Any combustion car. It's just physics. So they're better, right?
Yeah.
Once we have the ability to harness enough of the energy from whatever the sun, I mean, the sun's free energy, right?
Yeah.
We fight wars in the Middle East all the time over oil. If we just use that shit, then maybe we don't have to fight those wars anymore. We can ignore those pieces of shit.
Or we could just start drilling here and use the resources that we have.
We should definitely be doing
drills.
that. Yeah.
We're going to start doing when Trump gets back in office, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we should absolutely be doing that.
It makes no sense.
That's why he picked Stefanik, by the way, because she's a big drill person for UN.
Okay.
That's the only reason.
Yeah, because everyone was saying that, he picked a raging Zionist and this and this and that.
No one cares. Israel can handle itself.
That's what I'm saying.
Israel just dropped bombs all over Iran like a fucking month ago, and what did Iran do? They didn't do a goddamn thing about it because they can't do anything about it, right? The same thing when we popped Soleimani. I know this to be a fact. I don't think this is super widespread. You'll hear Kash Patel talk about it from time to time because he was there as well. But I know this for a fact. We kill Soleimani, and Iran, the IRGC commander, the new one, calls U.S. forces and say, hey, we're going to here are the coordinates on your base in Iraq that we're going to hit. Make sure there's nobody there. They fucking literally called people and told them to get all the guys out of the way. And then they fucking sent some rockets over, they blew up, and that was the end of it. That's how that works when Trump is in power. Daddy is home, right? You've seen it just over the past, what day is it? Thursday. Over the past week and a half, right? Not even a full week and a half yet. BRICS is already crumbling. Russia called us and told us that they're going to continue trading in the petrodollar, right? Which is that alleviates pretty much any threat from Russia now. The only threat from Russia would have been them converting off of the petrodollar. Otherwise, they can't do shit to us. Now, obviously, they do information operations and steal intellectual property and stuff like that. So does China, by the way, all the time. As a matter of fact, all the Antifa stuff, the intelligence reports I've seen, Antifa is completely funded by Russia. They just want to create chaos for us, right?
They're funded by Russia.
Yes.
Is it just Russia, or is it Russia, China, Iran, and these nations that...
Iran's not a factor. Iran is like a puppet. They don't have any real power. But yes, China's involved as well. But mostly the money mostly comes from Russia, interestingly enough. But that's Russia's game. Russia doesn't choose sides. They just try to create chaos. They've never chosen sides before. Anybody that's a student of intelligence history knows that. So they'll still do that stuff, and we got to keep an eye out for that. That's just the game, though, right? That's how it is. Russia's not our ally. They're not an enemy, but they're not our ally either, so they're going to fuck with us. But taking the petrodollar off the table, they are now absolutely no threat to us, so we can focus on China, which is why Marco Rubio was chosen for Secretary of State. Whatever else you think about that guy, and I think he's a neocon, I'm not a fan, but he fucking hates China. He hates them. I don't know why. I don't know if some Chinese kid beat his ass when he was a kid or some shit.
Well, no, it's because his family is Cuban, and they left the communist country, and so there's an innate hatred for any ideology resembling communism.
Yeah, but, I mean, they're not communists anymore, right? China. I mean, maybe socially a little bit, but economically they're fucking more capitalist than we are in a lot of ways. But anyways, yeah, that's probably true. So that's the reason he's in, because we're going to use a combination. Again, these things have to happen in stages. We have to first deal with import-export, right? Like the same thing Trump did before, tariffs. Threaten them. We probably will never issue actual tariffs on some of this stuff.
We're never going to issue tariffs. It's all
some of it.
It's all barking, I think, most of it.
Some of it we will on China, but the other countries probably not, right? But it is a very effective
It's a threat. It's a threat, and it's basically like, hey, stop ripping us off when we're trying to buy your goods.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, and then stealing our intellectual property as well. And I think we'll use tariffs as well for the fentanyl thing. So, so Mike Waltz is a buddy of mine. He's going to be the national security advisor. They're already planning to they're already planning to use, as Homan has said, as I think Hexeth has mentioned it as well. We're going to use the military to deal with these cartels. We're going to declare. Homan's talked about it a bunch too. The day Trump is in office or is inaugurated, sometime that evening there will be a declaration that, and he'll name the cartel specifically. Right? They are terrorist organizations, and we will treat them as such. We're going to tell Mexico that if they don't help, that we're going to issue a 100% tariff on every fucking good they provide, right? Everything into the U.S. And we're going to tell China if we see one more fucking truckload of fentanyl at our border, we're going to fucking tariff you as well, right? So those are the ways that you can handle this stuff without trying to get into war. So because everybody talks about, Rubio wants war with Iran, he wants war with China, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he does. He's kind of a lunatic. But what war has happened under Trump? None. He just used threats to use economic power against people, not sanctions. Sanctions are bullshit. They don't work. Sanctions just hurt poor people in those countries. That's all they really do.
Which creates regime change, which also creates more instability, which leads to war.
Yeah, it's nonsense. Yeah. The better option is to incentivize somebody to do the right thing. And you can incentivize people by offering them something up front or by offering them what Don Corleone would say, an offer you can't refuse. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you either do the right thing and stop fucking killing our people, or we're going to tariff everything you do and you'll never make any money. I mean, China's economy is teetering on the edge right now. They are really fucked up right now.
Well, they're what are they? They're the bank of the POC or something like that. Was it the POC or the PBOC or something like that? People's Bank of China.
PRC.
Okay. No,
PBOC.
People's Bank of China basically is buying up stocks to keep their market afloat.
That's
so that their market
like $4 trillion,
which is insane. But and it's also really good for Bitcoin because it shows the complete absurdity of money printing and a fiat standard.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for us too, right? Because now we know where to apply pressure.
And it shows that and it strengthens the American dollar also while causing Bitcoin to go up. And that's the best combination is when you have a strong dollar and a high Bitcoin price. That means that you can your purchasing power really starts increases and you get like this unbelievable surge of American prosperity. I'm really optimistic about this administration.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I saw a lot of Bitcoin skeptics I've seen with the same general idea, and I don't know if it's smart or not, but it makes sense to me. They're talking about selling the treasuries that back Social Security and putting Social Security into Bitcoin.
I think that's a great idea.
I think it probably is because if you look at from the very moment that Bitcoin existed, if you look at any 5-year period, I think the average is something like 1,000% growth or something like that. Now, obviously, that rate can't continue.
You know what's going to happen, though.
There's been no 5-year period ever in the history of Bitcoin where it has not elevated.
Yes, but here's what will happen. And I'm glad you're on board with this stuff.
I don't care.
No, but I'm glad that
Again,
you know about
I just know the math.
Right.
Like, the math is what matters to me. I don't give a shit about the product itself. But yeah, I mean, I'm on board with that. That makes sense to me.
Okay, no. But what I'm saying is that I feel as though you have this legacy apparatus that still does not want to die, and they were trying to use crisis after crisis to usher in like their version of a new world order, where their system will be in place and at the throes of power for hundreds, if not thousands, of years to come, which is what they were trying to do, and they almost got away with it during COVID because people were about to consent to these digital health passes and whatnot.
Yeah.
It seems as though this new world order is kind of at the edge of the cliff, and it's our job as Americans to push them over the cliff so they never come back.
Sure.
And that's what our job is, and it's and that's why I hate the infighting. That's why I hate the purity test, and that's why I hate all this Groyper fucking engagement farming bullshit because all it's doing is subverting the insane amount of progress that we as humans have made over the past 5 years, and it's gonna associate the progress that we've made with hating people, which we've done such a good job of dismantling that narrative.
Well, speaking of that, dismantling the narrative, I mean, you've seen, I think, in real time over the past 2 weeks. Think about this from the perspective of the average Democratic voter, like straight ballot. Only Democrat my whole life.
I got friends like that.
Yeah, same.
My dad.
I mean,
my mom and dad.
So they've gone from hearing Trump is literal Hitler to White House meetings, smiles, handshakes, hugs, and peaceful transfer of power within the course of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That has created, in addition to, I think it's probably for a lot of people the last straw to break the camel's back, and the succession of Biden's sharp as attack and all these other like the Russia collusion thing, all these other like demonstrably
false statements
that have been made, and they're like, okay, cool. Now is a very important inflection time in American politics. There is doubt is the manure that fertilizes conversion, right?
Yeah.
Like you have an opportunity. If you're a normal, reasonable person that just knows history now, you have an opportunity to, instead of dunking on somebody, to calmly explain to them what exactly has happened. And then here's what you and I want the same conclusion. This is our strategy to get there.
This is how we're
What do you
getting
think
there.
about
I'd like
that?
you to hear. Well, so I've actually been able to have a lot of conversations like that with a lot of my like very left-leaning, super liberal friends.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy of mine I went to college with who told me he'd still voted for Harris, but he wasn't like when Trump won. He was like, "Okay, I think this will be fine." He wasn't upset. He didn't care. He was cool. They were making jokes.
I mean, there were
afterward.
4 years
Like,
of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know why people like it's one thing to say if candidate X who's coming out of nowhere gets elected, it's all
Well,
gotta
people
be
are still
over.
scared of January 6th. So here's the thing, okay? So my buddy chose to vote for Harris because of how upset he was over January 6th. And
Well, I mean, like,
which is retarded because when you actually think about it, sorry if I'm like monopolizing, but
No.
when you think about it, first of all, the riots that led up to January 6th were infinitely worse and were actually a coup and a threat to democracy, way more so, as well as the subverting of information that was critical of the regime.
yeah.
Of this the legacy regime, not the regime because Trump was in power, but the legacy regime. That was way more of a threat to democracy. The blatant censorship of information and free speech was way more threatening to democracy than like a bunch of guys in MAGA hats rioting for a day, the most armed population coming to a riot with no guns.
Yeah.
So like there's that. And also Dave Smith brought this up and he said that like, you know, if you thought that the person that was in office was literally Hitler, wouldn't you do whatever it took to make it so that they didn't win an election, including using fake votes or allowing dead people to vote or dumping truckloads of ballots at 3:00 in the morning at a polling place in the middle of the night? And when I came on election night, which I really appreciate you letting me on. That was awesome. I didn't even expect it. And I was like, you know, it's going to be hard to prove. We talked about voting fraud. I'm like, look, I think it's going to be actually very harder to prove vote. I think it's a lot. If Trump loses, it's a lot easier to prove fraud now versus back in 2020 because of all these other factors.
Yeah.
That being said, like when you think about what Dave Smith mentioned and brought up, the 2020 election results need to be investigated by an impartial group of people.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think what the case probably was is that people who were never going to vote, 10 to 15 million people who were never going to vote, old people in nursing homes with dementia or low propensity voters of any sort,
they all voted.
These organizations went out, filled out the ballot form. All the signatures are the same. You can see them, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the person saw it at some point. There's videos of this that came out during in the first quarter of 2021, where you saw these a lot of Hispanic women going around to their communities, and people were filling out ballots. And she's like, "Oh, are you sure you want to?" She's like, got her finger on where she's supposed to be voting and stuff like that. Technically, that's probably not illegal, right? But it is deceptive and unethical. I mean, they did it on purpose to me, that's cheating. Right?
That is cheating. Yeah, absolutely.
To me, that's cheating. Like, there's no once I saw the returns for this election, and then you can see about where they're going to end up when the final votes tallied, I'm like, okay, there's about 10 million missing votes. You look at it over the course of the last 4 elections, and the vote totals for each side are about the same in every fucking election except for the one where there was no monitoring of anything, right? Obviously, the rational mind rebels at the idea of that being above board. It should. But you were marginalized, deplatformed, even in some cases criminalized, like my friend Christina Bobb, for even saying that shit out loud. Dominion used their money to come after people, and, you know, even though they're owned by the same parent company as Fox, which is interesting, at least traded by the same parent company. It's like, that was, to your point, a bigger subversion of democracy and the republic that we live in than what 400 knuckleheads did the Capitol building. Like, the Capitol building doesn't confer some special power. This is not a game of capture the flag. You don't own the country if you take the Capitol. People understand that, right?
I think a lot of people.
That's fucking retarded. It's not this is not a game of capture the flag. Like, oh, they're in the Capitol, they own the country now. No, that's not how it works. This is not fucking Command and Conquer or whatever fucking stupid game you used to play back in the day. In reality, there was a riot, and it lasted for a couple of hours, and then it was over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's the only fuel they have. It's like when you think about it from the position of a relationship. I think everybody has dated this kind of girl before, but she's crazy all the time, except for in public, obviously, right? She keeps her fucking shit together in public and then just gaslights people all the time. You can always tell who the asshole in a relationship is always by once it ends, who goes out on a PR tour and tries to convince everybody that the other one's an asshole, right? That one is the asshole for sure, and that's what the left is in this country. They've done this, and it's not just the left, by the way. I think establishment Republican people were involved as well in that.
Well, to be fair, a lot of the establishment Republican people of yesteryear are now on the left, like Dick Cheney as a very specific example, and Liz Cheney and those types, and Adam Kinzinger and all those. Yeah.
If I had a time machine, I would take a video. I would capture a video of Dick Cheney endorsing Kamala Harris and take it back to 2002 and to show everybody exactly what he said. And be like, you guys believe this? It's all full of shit. You're all full of shit.
Yeah, and it's so insane that these people they were that out of touch that they thought that courting Dick Cheney's endorsement would get them the libertarian and conservative vote. And Tim Walz was going on Jon Stewart's The Daily Show to talk about that being their strategy.
You know,
you can't do that unless you're planning on just blatantly stealing an election.
Well, I think I think the results in 2020 gave part of the Democratic Party false hope. Like they thought that's just how it is now. The part that cheated and got all these fucking low propensity votes to be mailed in with no oversight, they knew the game, and they knew they were hanging Kamala Harris out to dry. Because Joy Reid the other day said that it was a perfectly run campaign. That might be the dumbest thing that I've ever heard a human being say. They lost touch with men. They recognized it, and their solution to reconnect with men was Tim Walz, who does like fucking Rockettes kicks and jazz hands on stage all the time. Like, really, that's the man that
Could you imagine that guy being your football coach in high school?
No, I would probably report him to the FBI, to be honest. And he was in the military. If that guy was one of my leaders, I would light his ass up. There's no way he would exist around me.
Well, he also just deliberately chose to not do a tour of duty.
Yeah.
Because he would rather run for Congress instead. And then he said that he went to all these war zones when he clearly didn't.
Nah, he's a bitch. Yeah.
Yeah. The fucking worst. He was the worst. And then look what he did as governor of Minnesota. Just let Minneapolis burn to the ground. Had a COVID snitch line. Did all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Then people were like, "Oh, look how folksy and look how populistic he is because he gave free lunch to the kids in the elementary schools."
Well, here's some populism for you. In Minneapolis, during his tenure as governor, they've had a 550% increase in carjackings. Populism, right?
Wow.
Giving back to the people, just giving them other people's stuff, I guess.
It's called a redistribution of wealth, Dan.
Yeah. It's wild to me. The surrogates they chose to reach out to men. And then on the celebrity side, so Dave Bautista in a blouse, that's not doing it for me, bud. Like, I understand he was a wrestler at one point, but now he was
in a. I didn't know that he was in a blouse.
Oh yeah. He's done something with himself over the years. So it's Dave Bautista, it's Tim Walz, Eminem, who's a midget. No offense to 5'8" people, but come on. And then a bunch of female recording artists who, like, I don't understand, man. So Beyonce's hot, so I'm going to vote.
Well, it's because you know what it is. It's about rallying as many low information voters as possible to just get off the couch and vote, because there's a huge lack of intelligence and lack of wherewithal in this country. And I know this firsthand because I did a petition at UT to get a bunch of girls on campus to sign away their right to vote by abolishing the 19th Amendment to take away women's suffrage. And then I talked about how it is the cause of so many oppressive systems that we're dealing with today, and that the value of our dollar has gone down by 95%, and we're going to go to war with Russia as a result of women's suffrage, which is true because a whole bunch of single women in that demographic voted for Joe Biden. So it's not wrong.
Yeah. Didn't Boghossian do a study where 70 or 75% of college students can't name the 3 branches of government?
I don't know about that. I wanted to go to a Taylor Swift concert and do that little skit, but that just never materialized.
Go to one and ask them what the 3 branches of government is. I would love to hear that.
I'll do that. That'd be fun.
I don't think any of them will know.
What are the 3 branches of government? Can you name 3 amendments to the Constitution? Like, they wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
They would not know. I did another petition at Texas State right before the election about where I got kids to sign a petition to abolish the U.S. Constitution in order to dismantle our legacy of slavery and white supremacy. And the people that signed were the exact people that you would expect to sign that document. So I understand what the strategy was, Dan. And the strategy was take all the people who voted in 2020 that voted on pure emotion to get them to vote again, because if enough people who are low information that don't know what the hell is going on vote on pure emotion, then there are way more of those people than there are of us, which is why democracy kind of doesn't work.
Yeah. Democracy doesn't.
And so that was exactly what the strategy was, is to appeal to the stupidest, most low information demographic you could find, and that's exactly why they campaigned the way in which they did. It's just that they didn't have the enthusiasm. And the fund, I don't know.
Well, it's hard to have enthusiasm when you can't afford fucking bacon and eggs. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So people were less enthusiastic to do it. And were the same people that are knocking on doors doing all that stuff as in 2020, where they're trying to harvest dementia patients' votes?
Yeah.
This year?
They just there's too many eyeballs around. So there was a 10,000 person team from the Trump campaign monitoring ballot boxes and shit all over the country this year.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
It was about 10,000 people. And they were all volunteers, by the way. They weren't paid. That's how Trump somehow fucking Kamala Harris spent $500 million in staffing fees. That's insane.
Could you imagine that person like running our economy though? Like you know what I mean?
Well, I can. It's been the last 4 years.
Yeah, we dodged a fucking bullet by her losing. Just looking at those numbers alone should make every American, no matter who they voted for, breathe a tremendous sigh of relief. And then everyone's saying like, and they made abortion the big issue. And you know the reason that a lot of these women get abortions, let's say it's economic, right? We're not going to call them baby killers or demonize people. Let's say it's an economic reason. Well, you know, if you look at how these people spend our money, well, the economic reasons for getting an abortion are only going to increase anyway. So this is actually good for women anyway. Like the Trump economic policy is actually better for women, regardless of whether Roe v. Wade gets overturned or not.
Yeah. So abortion's an interesting one. Personally, I don't really give a shit.
I give 0 fucks. We have a fertility crisis. That's what I get.
I'll say a couple things. One, we definitely have a fertility crisis. 2, it's not a good thing typically when you remove consequences from actions, right? Just it's not just about that, and it's not about anything ethical or moral. That's just a fact that negative things happen when you remove consequences. But I'll go back to Ruth Bader Ginsburg talking about Roe v. Wade in the first place, that her criticism of it wasn't what the right's criticism was, which was that it was bad case law, which it was bad case law. Obviously, it got overturned. It's bad, horrible case law. RBG's fucking criticism of Roe v. Wade was that we were already on the path to a national abortion agreement that coincided with viability, right? Which is the international standard. When a fetus is viable, that's probably time to stop thinking about abortion, right? That was the international standard. It's still the international standard.
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
Yes,
yeah.
It certainly makes sense. And her criticism was it was already going in the right way, and you guys stepped in and pissed people off. You should have just kept your fucking mouth shut. Now, fast forward to today, Roe goes down, and immediately states start taking it up in their own state legislatures, which, by the way, is what the 9th and 10th Amendments of the Constitution demand, that this be adjudicated at the state level. So it goes to the states, and every fucking state, Iowa and Kansas, 2 of the reddest states in the union, both agree that there are going to be abortion rights here. I think the only one that's had super limiting ones, or the only 2, are Florida and Texas so far. And those are going to get challenged in the courts. They will not stand up. Right? So it's already going. one, constitutionally speaking, it's happened the way that it's supposed to happen now. The states are deciding this stuff, which means, by the way, that you as a voter in a state have a larger say over your outcome than you would have if it was a federal situation. And then two, if you're a pro-choice person, it's already trending in the proper direction from your perspective. So what exactly, and I think people to some degree knew this. People in some blue states that already adjudicated it from the state level looked at this landscape as like, all right, because you look at all the available factors and you make a decision about stuff. The economy sucks, okay, cool, but if it was actually some kind of despot running for office, people would they would accept a bad economy, I think. Nobody actually believed that anymore because it's, all the accusations have been proven to be bullshit. So you look at the rest of the landscape, it's like, okay, well, this is already going in the right direction. And that's one of the primary, other than running Kamala Harris, who's an absolute clown for office, and choosing an even bigger clown at Tim Walz to be your running mate. That's one of the biggest reasons they lost this. Because there was no issue of legitimate substance from the left, not one. Like, all they could offer you is more money for Ukraine, a shittier economy, and reproductive rights that you already have.
And 5-year-olds on puberty blockers.
Yeah, well, they didn't really talk too much about that. They tried really hard to obfuscate that. Luckily, somebody spent a fuckload of money here in Texas against All Red, and it kind of became a national thing. So that was a good thing.
You think we're going to get accountability for COVID?
Hard to say. I mean, there's so much stuff to do to unfuck what's been done to this country, not over the past 4 years, but since the early 1960s, when the CIA killed our president and the military-industrial complex captured completely our government. There's a lot of stuff to unravel. I don't know. Like, I'm angry about it, but it's a forest for the trees situation. Are we going to become undone trying to get revenge on these people?
I think in many ways we kind of are already on that path anyway, regardless of what happens. Like I said earlier in the show, regardless of what happens to Dr. Fauci, he already is in prison, and he's going to be in prison until the day he dies. And his children are going to be in that same prison. And because of the legacy of Dr. Fauci in that name, these kids are probably going to have to change their last names if they don't want to be mercilessly ridiculed for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, we know that it was a bioweapon. We know that Fauci
lied blatantly and lied
about it, yeah.
And then censored and coerced the tech companies to deplatform people who questioned his orthodoxies. So, yeah, I think that no matter what happens, he got tens of millions of dollars as a result of this, but now he has to have a private security team around him for the rest of his life, and then people like myself get to make their careers off of mocking him in public. So, he's never that's his life. His life is he's going to have no friends, and the only people he's going to be around are people that he has to pay lots of money to have around in order to protect him, and these people also probably cannot stand him as well.
Yeah. I mean, still, though, it would be nice to see him get electrocuted, wouldn't it? Or hanged. That'd be great.
Well, look, I don't want to advocate for any of that stuff on my...
No. Tried with a crime and sentenced to death and then hanged by the government. Why not? There's a couple states that still do that. Texas, technically,
I think that we should get
Montana.
a fair... Dan, I think that we should get a fair and impartial investigation into how we handled COVID, and we should have an appropriate punishment that matches the severity of what occurred during COVID.
Yeah, so
and that is my response to that.
Yeah, helping unleash a bioweapon on the world, and then all the people who died alone in their hospital rooms because of this man and his propaganda and his lies and his evil. He deserves the worst possible shit that can happen to you as a human being.
I think that all of this information is viable and will be presented. She should be presented impartially, and the appropriate outcome should be commensurate with everything that has happened, and all of that should come out now that we have a freer and more open internet with Elon, and we have a better, we have a better team around Trump that can bring these issues to light.
I think we should cover him in mayonnaise and throw him onto that monkey island.
I agree. Let's do it. I fully agree with that. Yeah. Fully concur.
Duke's mayonnaise too. I'm from the southeast, so they like Duke's mayonnaise over there.
I like it.
Yeah.
What do you see? How do you see these people trying to subvert a lot of what Trump does?
Well, I mean, so the first thing that'll happen, obviously, is trying to hold up votes or confirmations or anything in Congress. That'll be the first thing, and we'll see how that goes. I don't know if there's a whole lot of political will to do some of it right now. Obviously, the people that are in power right now in Congress don't just have to worry about maintaining what they have. They have to worry about people finding out what they've done as well, right? So, a smart senior staff for Trump is offering people clemency to some degree for past bullshit to get things moving in the right direction. We're not a banana republic. I mean, Fauci's a piece of shit, and I think he should fucking go away forever. But we're not going to go through Congress and the bureaucracy and imprison and execute people. That's not who we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
And it's also fucking stupid to do that.
Also, I feel like a lot of people on the right, and I don't want this to be a sidetracking thing, but I think a lot of these like far right, like attention-seeking people, like the Stu Peters types and those guys, will say military tribunals and say like a bunch of like outrageous, like very like yelly type. They're very animated, very angry.
And now that's dumb.
Yeah, and then it's like the most, and I feel like that's almost like another way to subvert accountability for what happened, because it just makes people like lose their mind, go crazy, and then it stops the accountability from happening when somebody does something stupid because of someone like that encouraging.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah. It's dumb. It's all noise. That's all rage farming. I think.
I agree with you. Rage baiting.
Yeah. So I'm more of a mind of like, hey, this is the way things are now. You can get on board, or we're gonna fuck you up.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Elon's already he tweeted 2 days ago that anybody that tries to obstruct Trump's plans, he's going to fund the primary challenge against them. Fair enough.
Good.
Right? That's a good threat. That's using your power and money wisely, I think. So that'll be the first hurdle. The second one is just clearing out all the bureaucracy and dealing with the lawsuits that come after. Doge is going to try to cut the government by 75%. They don't have any actual power. I don't know why people don't understand this. Like, Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC the other night kept saying it. It's not a real department. They don't actually have the power to fire people. It's like, no, they're going to call Matt Gaetz over the Attorney General's office and say, here's a list of people to fire, and Matt Gaetz is going to fire them because he could do that as the Attorney General.
And then they're going to use their humongous reach on X to get everybody to unanimously almost consent to this, and then it'll be a public mandate to do that.
Yeah, and it's an easy sell for somebody like Elon too. And I'm sure at some point during the discussion he'll invoke this, but he fired 75% of the Twitter staff, and there's no noticeable difference in the functionality of that platform.
No, it functions better, actually.
Yeah. The same thing, by the way, happened 2 times at Google over the past 4 years. They fired 12,000 people twice over the past 4 years, and then Facebook, rather, fired 12,000 people as well. I believe it was in the fall of 2022. So these major tech platforms are what, from his perspective, I think this would be really smart for him to invoke that as he's making these conversations. Like, this isn't about taking shit away from the American people. What it's about is returning some of your money and autonomy to you, right? And here's the evidence. We've done it in 3 separate businesses, right? That are 2 of them are $1 trillion companies, right? Like the U.S. GDP is what, 27 trillion, something like that. You're talking about Google with a $3 trillion market cap. That's a pretty good analog for what you're doing here. They can fire 12,000 people twice in 4 years and not even skip a beat. I think we're going to be fine, right? The purpose is to return your money back to you. And then the other part of it is deregulation, and not in a way, not like big corporate deregulation, but the regulation that costs American people money. The average American household spends $15,000 additional dollars on regulatory shit from the government, from the community level all the way up to the federal government every single year. $15,000. Imagine what the average citizen could do with an additional $15,000 of their own fucking dollars, right? You know what they're going to do with it? They're going to save some, sure, but they're going to pay down credit cards, which makes our currency more valuable, right? That's just the way it works. The more real currency and not debt currency we have, it makes it more valuable. And they're going to go out into the community and spend more money, which makes the economy better overall. It's like, these are very simple things. This isn't some goddamn argument about right versus left or any of that. It's just a math problem. And it's one that's been borne out over the last 80 years. We know the solution to this. We know how to do this. Just do it. But that's why, the rebuttal to that is all hypothetical fear-mongering. It's like, oh, they're going to take Social Security away. Oh, this or that, or he's a despot, or he's literal Hitler, or she's a Russian agent, or whatever. It's never substantive mathematical facts, ever. Putting that aside.
I agree. And then the new thing now is that Vivek is going to take away a bunch of health care for veterans.
I think the VA should be closed down.
Why?
I don't think it should exist because why?
Because as a veteran, I want to hear this.
Why should we have a 2-tier healthcare system? Why would we have a separate healthcare system for veterans than the because when I'm a veteran, sure, but I'm a fucking citizen of this country, and the reason I'm a veteran is because I signed up to go fight for my country, not for myself. I'm not trying to make a better life just for me. And if that's the reason you joined the military in the first place, then you're probably, well, I don't know anybody that even thinks that way, right? Like, we did that because we love our country. I want my country to be the best it can possibly be. And if that means me joining the rest of the crowd and taking on some of their burden as well, then that's what the fuck. I mean, I went to war. I can't take on some of the burden of this shit. No, there shouldn't be a 2-tiered system for any of this. Just like the way Congress is exempt from Obamacare or whatever the fuck, which is crazy to me that they exempted themselves from that. That to me is unethical. There should be one of these healthcare systems. And by the way, I can't. Well, I don't have time.
Well,
to
there's
go
also
down.
so many alternatives to traditional healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of Crowd Health?
Yeah, I know the CEO.
Andy Schoonover, yeah.
Yeah, he's a buddy of mine.
Yeah, Andy's been on my podcast a couple times, and I am a Crowd Health member.
I like Crowd Health.
Yeah, and so with companies like Crowd Health servicing, and the more you deregulate, the more companies like that can service, and that could kind of actually ease a lot of the burden that the traditional healthcare system places on people.
Yeah, certainly. And then, just not eating poison.
Yeah.
Not drinking
fluoride
soda,
and all that.
fluoride.
Red dye
number
number 5 and all this other shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we've created a bunch of health problems that need not exist. So I mean, it's like here's some data for you. So the VA employs about 335,000 people, right?
Okay.
There are 23 million living veterans.
Okay.
The California healthcare system has 220,000 employees, and they service 40 million people, right? So they have just about double the amount of, because not every veteran goes to the VA. They have just about double the amount of patients, and they have 30% less staff. And they do quite a bit better job, right, than the VA does. It's because if California healthcare systems fail, people stop using them. They go somewhere else. They go to a mom and pop place. They move to a different state or whatever. If you're a veteran and the VA fails you, you have no recourse. There's nothing you can do. Nobody at the VA gets fired. Maybe the VA secretary moves on and does something else.
Oh wow! And so you're just kind of stuck waiting in limbo.
Yeah.
I see why. All right, I see what he's doing. That makes sense. Okay.
There's no competition. Competition is the only thing that keeps incompetence from becoming the standard.
So I see why Vivek was saying that, and I see the bullshit thing that they're going to do to fight back against whatever he's trying to do.
Yeah.
Okay, that
it's
makes
competition.
sense.
Like you should,
Yeah.
in the same way that Corey DeAngelis talks about school choice and being able to take that money that is assigned to your child and it just goes automatically to public school and use it however you want, that forces the public schools to get better.
It does, because the public school system is a fucking joke.
Yeah, it sucks. But so is the public healthcare system. So with more competition, it forces people to get better at what they do. Right now, there's all of these non-competes. There's no fixes the way that the pharmaceutical industry works is absurd. I'm sure everybody knows about this at this point. But all these things kind of conspire together to make what I would call sick care and not health care.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They
Marianne Williamson actually was the one who brought that up.
Yeah,
Which is hilarious because she's like a left-wing Looney Tune, but she's right. She's 1,000% correct about that.
Most of this is something I tell people all the time. Just because you don't agree with somebody's solution to a problem doesn't mean the problem doesn't exist.
Yes.
And you're doing yourself and your community a disservice if you don't recognize people's concerns and at least have a conversation about it.
I fully agree with that. Fully agree.
Yeah.
Dan, how do we get a hold of you?
At Dan Holloway on Instagram or Twitter, and then watch Drinker Bros and Citizen podcasts.
Dude, I'm excited. Dan, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, this is probably one of the most informative podcasts I've ever actually hosted. So.
I know a bunch of useless information.
No, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.